Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, How I Forced the Port to Update Their Permitting System. So a while back had to submit a dive permit for some work we were doing down the port. I have a good working relationship with the safety officer there that handles all these. She had gone on her yearly leave, so permits had to be lodged with another safety rep who was well known to be difficult. Anyway, emailed off the permit to him. About an hour later I received a very angrily worded email from the guy handling permits, which explained my permit was denied as the permit clearly states that all permits must be faxed and must include our safety plan. I replied that email was the method preferred by their office and that they had requested that we don't attach the safety plans anymore as we now have a formal meeting to audit our safety plans and that it was double handling. He replied with, "I don't give a duck, permit clearly states. This permit is denied, submit a fresh permit." Now the diving safety plan we use for port works is a simplified version of our internal diving safety plan which covers pretty much every eventuality. The version that we give to clients is about 10 pages. The full version is about 700. I filled out the permit, pulled a paper version of the safety plan and loaded it into our flash printer, copier, fax unit and hit send. My boss raised an eyebrow and asked what I was doing, explained I was fixing our permitting issue. We found out after a few angry phone calls from the port that the port still had one of those old-style spool faxes, which are quite slow. They had tried to disconnect the transmission, but our machine was set to automatically resubmit and I lied and told them I didn't know how to turn it off. Anyway, the result of that was the HUI was taken off permits, and when the good safety officer got back she had to update all their permits. She thought it was incredibly funny as she said everyone in the office would have run-ins with him on everything. Next one is titled, Not Enough, You Say. This happened in the 2010s, however the backstory starts in 2005, when I got a lap band weight loss surgery. Things were, kind of, fine after surgery for a while. I had occasional complications but nothing I couldn't deal with. Then somewhere around 5 years post-op I had a major complication. I wound up in ICU, in a coma for a bit, then in recovery, before finally being sent home. I think I spent about 3 weeks in hospital. Once I got home the medical bills began to find their way to my mailbox. You see, when you are in critical condition within the best healthcare system in the world, this is sarcasm. For those of you in the back, I hate that I have to point this out. You have access to the best doctors available. Also, each and every one of them is going to bill you for having set foot into your ICU room. This is probably where I should mention that I had no insurance. I paid for the initial surgery by financing it. I thought I was making myself healthier by getting weight loss surgery. Anyway, the malicious compliance comes as a result of these bills. I did the math once. Without counting the 2 hospitals, the surgeon's office, and 1 lab, I was making payments to 21 other doctors who had consulted on my condition while in ICU. These bills ranged from $60 to thousands of dollars, Mercia. All told, I was close to $350,000 in debt. I knew this wasn't sustainable. I looked into bankruptcy, but in the meantime I wanted to make a gesture to the doctors whom I owed money. So I sent each one $10 a month, $210 a month for those counting. One day I opened a medical bill and there was a handwritten sticky note on the bill. It essentially said, "We appreciate your payments but $10 a month is not enough." Now I am certain that the person who wrote this note had absolutely no idea about my financial position at this time and was just doing her job, but I was angry. I was angry for trying to help myself become healthier and making my life worse. I was angry for the crippling debt I had put myself in. And I was angry because it would have been cheaper had I just died. I wanted to call this person who had penned this sticky note and unload all of this anger, but alas, she was just doing their job. Instead, I wrote a check for $11 instead of the $10 I had been sending. I kept sending payments to all of the doctors until it interfered with the bankruptcy case I filed. But I also never got another sticky note from that office. Next one is titled, Red Ones Go Faster. This story is a personal favorite because it's one of the rare times my team has not been blamed for other people's errors, even if we did have to clean them up. I had the pleasure of watching a coworker enact this malicious compliance. Conversations written as well as they can remembered. So, the orders at my job are coded by color. The color of the box the order is in indicates the type of order. Importantly, green boxes indicate a rush job and red boxes indicate a super rush job. Due to pressures from the demic and normal wear and tear, we are running short of green and red boxes. Under normal circumstances, the person that's responsible for ordering these supplies would go to the boss and get verbal permission to order more. Being the proactive sort, our supplies guy goes to the boss months before this becomes a problem. Surprisingly, our new boss denies the request. The conversation goes something like this. Supply guy. We need more expedite boxes, can I order some? Boss. Do we have a problem? Supply guy. Well, no, not yet. But we will in a few months. Boss. Don't worry about it, then. We'll deal with it when it comes up. Supply guy. But. Boss. Interrupting, go back to work. I'll handle it when it becomes a problem. Supply guy shrugs and goes back to work, knowing that it's not his problem anymore. A few months later finds boss in a panic as to why there aren't enough green and red boxes. Orders that should be rushed aren't going out on time. Boss goes to supply guy. Boss. Why aren't we getting our orders out on time? Supply guy. We don't have enough expedite boxes for the orders we're getting in. Boss. Why didn't you order them? Supply guy shrugs. You told me not to until it became a problem. Boss. Well, order some then. Supply guy. Okay, but they'll take a couple weeks to get here. Boss. What? Why? Can't we get them any quicker? Supply guy. Sure, if you want to pay extra. It'll still be about a week, probably. Boss. Fine, but you'll have to come up with a workaround until they get here. This is your fault. Supply guy does, in fact, come up with a workaround. Cue Malicious Compliance Part 2. Without going into minutia, supply guy comes up with a method that will keep the customers as happy as possible under the circumstances. However, this means longer hours for the team and thus more overtime paid out. Boss's bosses are unhappy with boss over the extra money spent on the overtime and the rush box order. Supply guy can't really be gotten in trouble due to both his seniority and capability and the fact that making sure the team is properly supplied is not technically part of his responsibilities. He was also not terribly unhappy about the overtime. Supply guy is hourly, while boss, who also had to work overtime, is salaried. Next one is titled, Try to Save Money? Try Again. This was more than a few years ago when I worked for a low-ball medical home health company. I was hired as a respiratory therapist and had an area to cover roughly 150 miles out from the office. The company had issues with managers cause of the loss of money and always had turnover. So my job was to set up breathing treatment machines, but the most common thing was checking on oxygen concentrators in patients' homes. At the time I would make $25 a visit plus mileage. So you try and group the patients and hit 3 or 4 at a shot. Every month a patient had to be checked and the check lasted about 15 minutes, just a fast check. So one day we get a new manager that was really all about saving money and getting the company back on track. He started to streamline departments and all I could hear was things were not done by the book. So he called me into the office one day, I worked from home mostly, and had a talk. That the cost of driving everywhere was too high for the amount of patients I had and could we do something about it. Explained that there was no other way of doing my job than how I was doing it. So he came up with the idea of a phone visit. I explained really can't do that cause I could not see the equipment, and he countered with the drivers see the machines every week and can just spot check to see if they were working. So he made up a worksheet to check off the things I usually look for. Hours of use, clean filters, clean machine, hoses okay and not needed repaired. Total of 10 questions. He proceeded to say I can call and have the patient give me hours and ask the questions and bill it under a visit. Which I can't do cause the code isn't right, so he look up all our codes for me and picks phone consult and tell me to bill under that. To cover my butt I ask for a letter stating this and he gives it to me next day. Cue malicious compliance. I got all my patients' numbers toward at the end of the month and worked through the list and got 34 done in about 4 hours and decided that was enough to make a point. At this time I complete my paperwork and send it to corporate with the letter from my boss telling me to bill under that type code. Week later I get a check for $4,250 since that phone visit code was a $125 per consult, mainly used for ventilators. Not bad for a part-time job. So the next week I do a few more patients and submit my pay. The following week I get a call from corporate asking why I was getting paid more than full-timers in executive posts. I explained everything and forwarded all the documentation to them. A week later the manager was at his desk when a fleet of cars pulled in and in walked HR from main office and fired him. Next one is titled, Ruined the Fees Run. Last quarter, I was asked to complete a big bunch of payment from client accounts where we had permission to automatically pay our fees. This is not my job, but I went ahead and started cracking on. By 1500 I'd finished inputting the payments, and was about to go on lunch, when I noticed that the account number on the invoices was incorrect. It was still one of our accounts, but in the wrong currency, which would lead to a loss on foreign exchange commission. Like the fool I am, I pointed this out thinking that the payments would be cancelled. Billing would be given a well-deserved shouting at and the person whose job it is to do the damn payments would have to pick it up. Like I say, I'm a fool. So anyway about 1900 I finish the re-inputs, send an email to billing informing them of the cock up, copy in directors and head home starving hungry because I'd still not eaten. Next day I get pulled into a meeting and told off for having the temerity to email billing asking them to fix a glaring error on the invoices that would have cost the company a few grand. Worth pointing out at this juncture that I'm working my notice and only have a few days left. Anyway, yesterday guess what? Yup, it's billing time again and Mr. Payments is nowhere to be seen again, so I'm asked to help. Righto boss, no problemo. Checked the first invoice, the account number was still wrong. Only trouble being that this time I didn't notice it. Got a very angry email this morning from a director asking why all the bills were paid to the Euro account. I just said that as I'd informed them of the error previously, I assumed that it was deliberate. They're not happy, but as I'm on the old notice period, they can't be bothered with the hassle of binning me off. I left work for the first time in ages with smile on my face. Next one is titled, That's What the Tag Says. I was at my favorite hardware store riffling through the bargain bins as I have a habit of doing whenever I have the chance. In between other items there was a decent 2 UDAB Plus car radio with a price tag of €29,950. Clearly a case of misplaced decimal separator, but I brought it to the cashier anyway, and asked, is there something wrong with this price, or will I get it for the price printed? The cashier looks at the price, thinks for a second, and smiles beatifically. The box is very shabby, so the managers clearly knew what they were doing. That will be €29.95, sir. That's how I got the impression that very few ducks were given, and I got a great new car stereo for my wife's car. Last one is titled, If You Feel Sick, Go See a Doctor. Okay boss. About 10 months ago, I was going through a very hard time in my life. My job, my marriage, my family, everything was failing, including me who had relapsed into alcoholism. Then the pandemic came on top. I desperately needed a break, or at least some slack. Since I was regarded an essential employee, it help desk admin grunt. My employer blocked all of my inquiries for some home office to catch a breath, get some distance between me and a certain micromanaging, unofficial team lead, and maybe even find enough time and power to tackle some of my personal problems. Home office would have meant saving 3 hours drive daily. Little background information. This was during a time where laws and policies changed almost weekly. Can't say if at that moment home office was even mandatory, if possible, but at least the whole world already still agreed everyone should stay home if possible. Except my employer, who told me there's no home office, no, not even some hours after lunch break, and to go see a doctor if I didn't feel well enough to work. So I did. And the doc shook his head about my employer and gave me a sick note. And another one, until today. And I made good use of this time. As of today, I am 241 days sober. My divorce is lined up and my ex has recently finally moved out. Never in this time did my employer reach out to me, not even once. Well, someone from work I didn't really have anything to do with contacted me on a private channel, so I guess that was them eavesdropping. Until some weeks ago, when they sent me my dismissal. This I had been waiting for, since they are legally not allowed to do that, in my case at least. Thankfully, I have always been a fan of unions. Not a fanboy, but they do have their advantages one shouldn't miss out on, like free legal counsel. Now, after some dormammu, I've come to bargain. I have agreed to leave this toxic workplace in exchange for coin. Those coins will help me replace the stuff my ex-wife took with her. I ain't even mad. Edit. For anyone wondering, this means I quit drinking and seeked out professional help with my other problems, not that I only chilled at home. Thanks for listening.